Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. This video is recorded precisely one day later than the previous CX video where I got the number plates and was all happy and driving around and everything was almost fine. Today, the first day, I had a massive breakdown in this car and I'm not hugely surprised, but for some reason I was trusting this enough to take it on a little small family trip today. That didn't really pan out very nicely because not far from here, remember I talked about not a lot of heat in the cabin? When you don't have a lot of heat in a cabin of a car, you should always check on your coolant levels, because if no heat gets in there, it could be because of low coolant. It could be because of an air pocket in the engine. It could be because of a blown head gasket. Anyway, if you have low heat in the cabin, you should check it out. Of course, I had checked that out, and the reason for what I was complaining about on the heating side of things in the previous video was actually not about the heat in the cabin. It was about the amount of airflow coming out of the vents. You couldn't even, I think if I took a candle and put it in front of the vent, you wouldn't really notice that the blow engine was on, but heat was coming into the cabin, so I wasn't worried about that. But on the trip today, heat disappeared. So I stopped and checked, and I had a problem because I was missing coolant. So I did a quick bleed and a refill of the coolant on the way. Then we drove a little bit further down the road and then still no heat. And the same thing happened. It got quite hot a couple of times because of traffic situations. I did see around 115 Celsius degrees on the coolant system at one point. Not great. And then I used a couple of hours to get this one back home by driving a little bit, stopping, bleeding, adding coolant, water, because it would be a waste otherwise. And I got home eventually. It took a while because not only do I have a problem with the coolant system right now, I also have a problem with the starter not always working. And I also have a problem with the batteries. Even though I put a brand new battery in this, it wasn't up for the task for multiple restarts. So I think my theory is that the starter is draining a lot of juice out of this battery. So I had to push start it a couple of times also. It was life with old cars. I'm not expecting it when it happens, but I'm not surprised either, because I am taking cars from the grave and picking them up, dusting them off a little bit, putting some filler here and there, welding up a rust spot or two, and then on the road, because that's what I think is fun. Today wasn't particularly fun because we had planned to go somewhere and it didn't work out. What I need to do in this video is to figure out what's going on, because hopefully, and I really hope that's the case, when I changed the coolant and the radiator in a previous video, I noticed a lot of stuff in the reservoir. It looked like that kind of leak stop stuff you could put in if you got a small leak somewhere. I cleaned the reservoir out, I changed the radiator, but what I forgot, because this project has been a little bit quickly underway, because I needed a daily driver, I forgot to change the thermostat. And what I hope is the problem is that the thermostat is completely clogged now, so no water can get into the engine. Therefore the engine will be very hot and make an air pocket at some point and push out a lot of pressure and then force it out through the cabin or everywhere. I hope that's the case. Another thing could be the water pump not pumping efficiently, because I am looking for a reason why the heat suddenly doesn't come into the cabin, even though I do a proper bleed, because there's no heat in the cabin anymore. So that could be the case. But of course, it's a worry that the head gasket is blown because of the overheat, or maybe just because of the drive home today, because it's a hard task for an engine to drive without a lot of coolant in the car, even though I was really careful. So what I want to start with is to do a test to see if there's combustion gases in my coolant system. Oh, by the way, at the second breakdown, I parked the car at a local shop for buying stuff for animals. I went in there to try to borrow some tools, because for some reason I was really trusting this car, and I didn't even bring anything else than a Phillips head screwdriver. So that was very stupid. In there, I met a guy who looked at me and said, "But I saw that car on YouTube yesterday and it was driving just perfectly." And I was actually a little bit stunned by that. So I just told him that it broke down today and it was actually recorded yesterday, that video. And then when driving away from that shop, it hit me that that video currently got 3,000 views. I don't even know what the odds are for me driving 10 kilometers from my home, breaking down at a random spot, going into a random shop, and then meeting someone who has watched the videos on the CX. If you're watching this one, then hello to you. I was a little bit stunned at the moment because my car broke down, but that was a fun experience. Anyway, I want to do a test to see if there's combustion gases in the coolant. If there is, I know I have a huge issue with the head gasket, the Solana even. It could be a lot of things, but it will be severe if we got combustion gases in the coolant system. So I'm going to check for that firstly. If it's the head gasket, it will take a while because I will need some part. I will need a new water pump. I will need to rip out the head. But don't worry, I'm going to do it because even though I only drove this car one day and it already let me down quite a lot in quite many different very weird ways, I really like this car. So I've taken off the cap from the reservoir. I'm going to fit this one. I'm not really sure how to use this because I bought it off the internet and there is no manual with it, but the theory is that I'm going to put some liquid into here and then that should change color if there is combustion gases in the coolant system. Let's try to use it. So this blue stuff is supposed to turn yellow if there is combustion gases. Please cross your fingers out there. Oh, another problem. The car is showing one of the other faults it got right now. Right now nothing happens when I turn the key. But if I take this one out and put it onto the battery, it works. And then I can go ahead and go into the car again and fire it up, hopefully. So I'm going to do it again with the ignition on. Oh, there we go. Just needed a bit of throttle, which is not normally needed on a injection car. You'll also notice that the belts are very noisy. That's another thing that is very annoying. We already got a lot of water in there. I think I'm supposed to let some of the pressure out if that happens. This is just water coming out, by the way. That will take care of washing the bonnet at least. That's a lot of pressure in a coolant system. Doesn't even make sense to do that test. I can honestly not remember when I last seen this clear signs of head gasket, even though I don't got the mayonnaise stuff and all that, but cold engine running for under a minute and just forces the coolant out of the reservoir. But I'm still hoping that it could be something else. Hoping because this is my daily driver right now. I wouldn't be that sad if it wasn't, because I really like to do head gaskets. It's a lot of fun. But right now I just want this car to drive. I want to do a leak down test now just to confirm what I believe is the issue. If that does not tell me, if that doesn't confirm it, then I'm still going to be optimistic. But a leak down test won't lie. It won't tell you precisely what's wrong though, but it will tell you if the Solana head needs to come off or not. My leak down tester is a very cheap one, so I'm not counting much on the readings on the gauge, but I am looking for bubbles in the coolant or air whistling out of the coolant reservoir. Then I need to turn the engine over to find the compression stroke, otherwise the air will just escape into the intake or into the exhaust. But I am just going to push the car in gear. That won't be too difficult because there is no compression right now because of the spark plugs being out. And then spin it over until I get the highest reading. Right now I can hear a leak. I'm not sure where it goes, but let's just try to spin it. There we go, compression. Okay, so cylinder number 1 is pretty good. Let's take the next one. That's about there. There's not a lot of leak down here. But there is a bit on the rings, but that is to be expected. Nothing on the coolant though. Let's try the next one. So there is only one left now. So of course it can still go wrong, but right now I'm really puzzled because, well, the odds are 25% that this is the one that is blown, if it is blown. But it would also be so weird to be the last one I test to be the blown one. I said we add compression stroke now. The leak down test doesn't show anything wrong. It could be because the pressure I put in is not very high, but I doubt it. I really doubt it. I'm just gonna do one more test before I start being optimistic, because this is looking good. That could turn, this could point toward a massive airlock in the cylinder head that I, for some reason, suddenly cannot bleed, because it did manage to bleed last time. Because I did drive it for a while without any problems. That would surprise me if it happens one day later. But maybe the water pump is stuck, something is wrong, maybe it's clogged up, maybe the thermostat, maybe something else is clogged, making it impossible to bleed it correctly, and therefore an air pocket will expand very quickly when you fire the engine up and force the coolant out of the reservoir. I hope. What I'm going to do as the last little test is to put my borescope down each cylinders. But if I pressurize this system all the way up to 1 bar, that is where the cap should open. Then I could maybe just look into the bores, because in theory I would be able to see water going into the cylinders. At least if the leak was bad. Nothing there. Damn, you know what? The weird looking cylinder. I got coolant coming into the cylinder number 2. I don't know why the leak down test didn't pick up on this one, but it's very clear. It's very clear. Do you see it? It's dripping down. Just going to try to record it. This is a blown head gasket for sure. I'm not sure why it didn't pick up on the other test. I think I'm actually going to redo the leak down test on that one, just to, not to be sure, because I am sure now. This is such a shame. Mostly because I'm in a bit of a hurry with this car. Pressurize. Now, let's find the compression. I'd say that's compression. Then I'm going to turn the pressure up on this one. I cannot hear it. That is a bit surprising actually. I'm not able to hear it with this amount of pressure and the coolant system. So yeah, but there's no doubt in my mind that we got a head gasket issue, unfortunately. So to be honest, this was not the video I was hoping to make tonight, but this is just the way it is when you revive cars the way I do it. There's a lot of loose ends, and the first couple of weeks will always be quite exciting. Normally I'm actually pretty lucky. This time I wasn't. I just need to get to work and strip it down, open it up, clean everything, get the cylinder head skimmed. But thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.